Most literature reviews becomes messy because the papers, the notes, and citations are usually scattered. You search in one place, you save papers somewhere else. You take notes in another document. Then you start writing and realize you are not fully sure which paper supports which claim. That is also where AI can create problems. If you ask AI to write before checking the papers, you can end up with weak claims or citations you cannot support or trust. So today, I'm going to show you a simple way to use one of the popular AI tools for literature reviews without fake citations or claims you cannot defend. We will use it to find papers, read one paper faster, build a small evidence table, draft and refine with sources you can check, and defend every claim. So the tool we are going to look at today is an AI-powered platform called SciSpace. If you are a student, a researcher, or an academic who work with scholarly papers, SciSpace is one of the tools that will be most beneficial to you. So once we log into SciSpace, you can immediately tell that this function as an all-in-one platform, from AI writing to chat with PDFs to literature reviews. You can also use it to find topics, paraphrase, citation generators, AI detectors, and you can organize your library as well. When you come to the main screen, you can also see the varied amount of resources you have on the platform. But for the purposes of this workflow, I'm going to keep this simple. I'm not going to show every single tool on the platform. As you can see, there are tons of tools or features. I want to show the basic workflow you could use when starting a literature review. So the very first step we will do is to search for paper. That is step one. Before we search for papers, you would have to start a new chat. So let's start a new chat, and then we'll have a prompt based on your research question or the topic of interest. So we have a prompt here that asks SciSpace to find or search research papers on barriers to malaria vaccine delivery in sub-Saharan Africa. So we'll search this, and then SciSpace will pull all the relevant papers we need for our next step. So let's go ahead and check what we get. As you can see, it searches through multiple databases to pull the most relevant papers that we can use. As we are waiting for the results, the first mistake most people do is asking AI to write an entire literature review from scratch. I prefer to start with the paper search. The prompt I gave SciSpace will do exactly that. It tells it exactly what I need. I do not want every paper on malaria vaccine. I want papers about delivery barrier. That gives me a better starting point. So as you can see, the search agent conducted a broad search across multiple databases, including Google Scholar and PubMed. It tells you exactly how many papers it retrieved, right? And then it also adds one useful feature here, that is removing duplicates. So it even goes ahead to remove about 20 duplicates and returns a total of 81 unique papers that we can start with. And the good thing is that at the beginning, it offers you a thematic summary or provides a structured thematic overview of the main findings of the literature review. But we want to go deeper to make sure that we really have the best papers and we are doing the right thing as researchers. So as I said, beyond the very first output, the most important step is to check for relevance. I want to know, is this paper actually about malaria vaccine delivery? Is it from the right region? Does it discuss access, uptake, implementation, or health systems? Is it useful for the argument I'm trying to build? I would not cite a paper just because it appears in the results. The paper still has to do a specific job in the literature review. So now what I will do next is that I'll open all the files. You go to your summary document, and then I go to all files. Once you go to all files, you would see that SciSpace has categorized the search results for you. You have a combined results here, and you have only the results that was retrieved from PubMed, right? So for the purposes of this exercise, I will use the combined results which produce about 82 papers. The useful part here is that SciSpace even ranks these papers by relevance. As you can see, each paper has been given a relevance score out of 100. So based on this, it can help you identify which papers can be very useful in your literature review. Another helpful step here is to use the add column section in SciSpace to add other relevant functions and include sections that may be useful for your initial review. So for example, if you click on add columns, you can actually add conclusions from each paper, results, methods used, literature, survey, or limitations. Each of these areas or columns can be added, and once you add it, you'll see that it will be added to these other columns. So now that we have our relevant papers, one critical step in this process is to examine each paper before even contemplating on citing it. And the easiest way to do that is still within SciSpace. This time around, we are going to use a feature within SciSpace called Chat PDF. All right, so what we are going to do next is to open a paper in Chat PDF and ask relevant questions. So as you can see, once you click on the main paper, the Chat PDF feature opens up. From here, you can use the suggestions that appear under the Chat PDF to ask questions, or you can have your own questions. At this stage, I prefer to use or to ask my own questions. So you put your prompts here. The first question I asked was, what study design was used? What was the limitations in the study? You can ask additional questions like, I want to know the population size. I want to know the findings from the paper. So from here, you can see that Chat PDF has been able to extract the limitations as discussed from the paper. I mean, the limitations part is very important because a good literature review collects findings and shows what the evidence can and cannot support. But this is also not the final part. The most important aspect here is that even though the Chat PDF feature has provided the information I need, the next step is for me to read the relevant sections of each paper to make sure that it is indeed the right paper. And you can do this by downloading the PDF itself or reading the entire paper inside Chat PDF. You just want to make sure that it is the correct citation that you're going to use, or is a correct paper that you're going to use. So the next step for me will be to save the relevant papers into my library. So I'll go through the relevant papers, read through, use the Chat PDF function to assist me in extracting the most important areas. Then what I will do is to save each paper that I will need for my draft. So the easiest way to do that is to open a paper. Under each paper, you will see that there's a save function here. You click on the save and then you save it to your dedicated folder, or you can create a new one and then add that particular paper in your dedicated folder. All right, so now that we've saved our papers in our folder, once you go to your library and you go to your folders, you can see that we've saved 11 papers here that were relevant to our research question. Now, SciSpace create an evidence note for you. This is very critical for drafting your first draft, right? So this helps you avoid writing from memory. For each of the papers, you can present the setting, the study type, the main barriers, the limitations, the findings in a table. SciSpace does this for all the papers that you've added to your file. At this stage, what I would like to do is to write one possible takeaway from each paper in my own word. This is very important. I do not want the tool to invent my argument. I want the paragraph to come from what I understood after reading the papers. This raw version may not be perfect. That is fine. The first job is accuracy. The second job will be clarity. So now that we have a rough draft, what comes next is the synthesis and the writing itself. And this is the step I take before even writing. First, I create a solid outline to stay organized. At this stage, I can use the AI writer feature in SciSpace. So at this stage, what we'll do is to go to the AI writing feature, start a new writing, start writing with AI, and then we'll put our prompt. My prompt is for SciSpace to help draft an outline for a literature review on health system barriers to malaria vaccine delivery in sub-Saharan Africa. You can put your own topic depending on what you're working on. Now we generate the outline that we would like to use for our draft. Yes, so immediately SciSpace provides you a comprehensive outline of the document you would like to write. So what I would do here is to go through and then clean it up, make sure that the structure I have is what I truly need. So now that I have a structure for my literature review, what I would do is that I would pull my draft or my rough notes that I took whilst I was reading the papers and then start populating them in each section. So for example, if I have this section that talks about introduction, remember that SciSpace already have my paper stored in library. So if I want to cite, I'll click on the sentence that I want to cite and then insert the citation. So for example, once you select the sentence, you see AI, ask AI, paragraph, and then cite. Once you click on cite and you go to my library, you see all the papers you stored. It automatically pulls up the relevant paper that you can cite for each section. So I'll go ahead and cite this paper, and then this citation pulls up your bibliography at the bottom. You can even change the citation style if you want. So what I'll do is that I'll go through each of the sections, retrieve my rough drafts, and put them under the relevant sections and cite them as I go along. So as you can see, once you've gone through the whole process of pulling your rough drafts and placing them under the relevant sections and then using the cite function, you have a complete document with full citations that you verified yourself. That is a very important part. Okay, now the last step for me is to use a feature in SciSpace that is also very, very important. What you can do, because it's a rough draft, what you want to do is to test the fluency and then other areas that you want to paraphrase, and you have all the features in SciSpace. So for example, if I want to paraphrase this particular sentence, I'll select the sentence, pick Ask AI, and then you can improve the fluency, or we can paraphrase a particular sentence. In this instance, we can choose academic, right? So once you pick academic, it automatically paraphrases that particular sentence for you, and you have the option to replace it, insert it below it, try again, or discard it. So if you replace a section, automatically you have a new paraphrase document that you can use. Remember that after every paraphrase, you have to ensure that it retains the original meaning. You read through, make sure that the original meaning is maintained before you decide to accept, discard, or replace. So once this is done, the last step is then export as a Word document. So you go to the export feature, click on export, and then you can access your draft here. All right, so this is the document we just downloaded. And what I will do next is to go through each statement, each sentence, make sure the correct citations were added, make sure the sentences make sense, and the references are intact. So this is like the final product you have after going through all the major steps that I outlined. So that is a simple workflow that you can adopt if you want to write a paper. It can even be your end of term paper, your dissertation draft, your literature review, a end of year report. What you have to understand is that you have to start with a focused question. You can use SciSpace to find papers, read each relevant paper with chat PDF function, organize the evidence in a table, draft it in your own words, especially the first draft should be in your own words. Use your citations to check whether it's correct, then use a paraphraser to improve clarity without changing the meaning. Before you submit anything, remember Read the original paper yourself. SciSpace can reduce the chaos around research and writing, but the final responsibility still stays with you, the author. Your claim, your citation, your submission. Now, if you want to try SciSpace, use the link in the description. Let me know what you think about this AI research tool. Will you likely use it in your next research or in your next scholarly work? Well, until next time, see ya.